I frequently joke that, despite how far I've occasionally stretched it, I am at ease in my own skin. However, I am who I am. I know who I am, and I don't strive to be someone else. If that doesn't satisfy you, that's unfortunate. However, I can enter any room knowing that I will be myself, and that will have to suffice. I've always wanted to be a celebrity, but you have to work so hard to get there that you never really get to think about it, or I don't think about being a star. I mean, I know I'm successful and I'm really appreciative of it. However, I believe that after leaving Locust Ridge, I began to sing on the radio and television in my hometown when I truly recognized that I was going to succeed. When I was around 10 years old, I had the opportunity to sing on the Cashwalk Show, and when I was even younger, I had the opportunity to perform on the Grand Ole Opry. I believed that I was starting to sense how the audience would react to me because I would be anxious. Naturally, you always have butterflies, especially when you're young and accustomed to spending time with your family. It's a bit different from standing in front of that tin can and singing to the dogs, chickens, and young children in the yard. Then there are all these people. I believe I first became aware of it when they brought me back to perform an encore after I might have had some. And I would look at my uncle and think, "They liked me, didn't they?" He would remark, "Yeah," as we were making our way to the car. I recall thinking, "I might be a star," and he said, "I think you're gonna be." That was my mother's brother, Uncle Bill Owens, who spent the time and energy to help me and show me around. Over the years, he also played the guitar. When they brought me back to sing an encore after I might have had some, I suppose I first realized it. I would look at my uncle and ask myself, "They liked me, didn't they?" "Yeah," he would say as we walked to the car. I remember thinking, "I might be a star." And he said, "I think you're going to be." Uncle Bill Owens, my mother's brother, put in the time and effort to assist and educate me. He also picked up the guitar throughout the years. But at that point, my hormones were starting to spike, and I just felt all those feelings for him because he was so charismatic. Years later, I realized that this was the first time I had ever understood what people call charisma, or whatever it is. He had that thing, and it worked its spell on me. We remained friends throughout the years, and I told him that he was my first major infatuation. Years later, I told June the same thing. I informed her that I had him first. Before you, I was in love with him. He introduced me to the Grand Ole Opry that evening when I was only a teenager. Jimmy C. Newman, a regular on the Opry, had given me his slot, and I got to sing there. To prevent him from continuing, I believe my Uncle Bill got him intoxicated or something. I'm not sure. Nevertheless, Johnny got to introduce me, and I got to be on. That night was just magical. That evening, I too felt unique. You know, when I first started working with Porter, both he and I were stubborn. I'm just a country person, you know. In that regard, I also have a lot of my father in me. I also have 6 brothers. I mean, I adored my grandfather and all of my brothers and uncles. I was therefore accustomed to males. I am aware of the nature of males, you know. I adore males. I never felt intimidated, so I simply was, you know. You weren't going to bully me because someone was a male. Porter and I went head-to-head on a number of issues because of this. Naturally, I admired Porter and was grateful for the wonderful chance. However, I was not one to be bullied or shoved without having a voice. However, I believe that understanding the nature of men and growing up in a large family helped me well. You know, I was really appreciative of all the years I spent with Porter, and Porter taught me a lot. And I will always be appreciative of Porter and the song "I Will Always Love You" while I was with him. You know, when I was leaving, I wrote for Porter, and the moments we had will always hold a special place in my heart. Naturally, you laugh at everything that comes before you. However, as horrible as that may sound, I wasn't only taking advantage of others. But when it was time to move on, God always informed me. I thus thought, well, I'm a songwriter, I'm a singer, I'm a performer. When I reached specific locations, I must have the freedom to attempt new things. You want to think that you are capable of more. Being pigeonholed was not what I wanted. I don't have to fit into a stereotype just because I'm from Pigeon Forge. I simply felt that I had to give things a try. A few of them were ineffective. A few of them did. And when I initially departed for the performance, I took that risk by going out to locate Sandy Gallen's huge management and going to RCA to find out if it was real. I was going to get dumped. "No, we want you to stay," they said. We see a lot of promise. I was the type of person who would simply board an aircraft. I would ask someone over the phone whether we could meet. Even though I was a female, I was sufficiently well known in the early days after the program that someone would at least pay attention to me. Men would therefore frequently listen to me. I was a rapper at the time, you know. However, I believe that many people assume that since you're a lady, you don't necessarily know what you're doing. However, as I already stated, I still don't know much about the world. What other people do doesn't matter to me. All that matters to me is what I have to do. Since I don't have children, that's the one thing for which I am completely accountable. I would simply decide to attempt new things on my own, in the same way that I respect and adore every girl. I can also see why they do it. Like my daughter Molly, I adore her. She's always experimenting. She has gained a lot of knowledge, even though some of it doesn't function at all. Additionally, it develops you as a person. It develops character. Thus, I believe that everything is a process of learning. However, you'll never know if you lack the courage to give it a try. Try, try to be the first one up the mountain. Try to be the first to touch the sky is the title of a song I penned. Additionally, don't allow anyone to convince you that you are incapable of succeeding. And if they say that, show them it's a lie because if you don't succeed at first, keep trying. Because in God's sight, you are not a failure. You won't know if you don't try. So simply relax and let the magic unfold. That's similar to my viewpoint then. Everyone remarked, "Well, you're 80 years old and you will be 80 years old." Well, so what? I responded. Take a look at my accomplishments throughout the past 80 years. I feel like I'm only getting started. I believe there is much to be said about aging, even though I realize it seems ridiculous. You will age if you let yourself. And others ask, how come you don't seem to get old? I answer, well, I don't have time to get old. I don't have time to think about that. I'm not considering that. I wonder, what? I'll be 80? They will commemorate my 80th birthday. Not that anyone would want to commemorate that, However, the fact that I have accomplished so much over that period and continue to do so is cause for celebration. I am appreciative of that. It's the delight of it, after all. I thus have no idea what I'll be doing tomorrow. There will be new developments. Every day, I am receptive to God, and I'll do all in my power. For years, I've believed that a musical about my life would be more appropriate than a biography. That's what everyone is doing. However, I believed that I could compose some fresh original songs because I write and am a songwriter. Additionally, since you won't have much time, you may fit a lot of information into a song and share a lot of your tale. A 3-hour concert is just too lengthy, Therefore, 2.5 hours is approximately appropriate for a performance. However, all of it, the tale, and surviving for 79 years, can't be captured in a single presentation. I thus decided to compose the soundtrack. And because I was raised without electricity in my early years, I found my tale to be really fascinating. I feel as though I had entered a new era after emerging from the Dark Ages, and people find that intriguing. It is also important to me to consider my origins and current situation. I've endured a great deal of suffering as a result, and I believe that I was ready to share my tale at this age. Since there will undoubtedly be a lot of stories about Dolly Parton throughout the years, I wanted to share my life story from my perspective and not someone else's. Everybody will have a different perspective on it, whether it's about Dolly 40 years ago or Dolly this, or that. However, I wanted to share my tale while I was still living. I wanted to share my perspective on life and how I experienced it. I thus wished to compose some original works. I had to include every hit, of course. However, when I spoke about my songs and the tales behind them, I wrote a book about how they came to be and what was going on behind the scenes, just as I did in my song. I believe that people find that incredibly fascinating, and many more were unaware. Many individuals were taken aback by my willingness to provide so many intimate details. However, so what? People believe they know everything about you, after all. They don't. They still don't too. However, witnessing the musical has taught them a lot more than they ever knew. I simply reasoned, well, why not be on Broadway? I've done a lot of other stuff. How about doing that? So I did it. I'm not sure if performing in the musical has taught me anything about myself, but I do believe that it has really affected me. To me, it has truly been like going on a roller coaster. I lost, just like my husband Carl. Naturally, Losing the person you love the most is the most difficult loss someone can ever experience. You know, it's therapeutic for me to see the program because I depicted him so beautifully, and I never saw him like that. It seems as though he has never left. He will thus always exist in other people's imaginations as well as in my own. The same is true for Judy, my best friend, and how I depicted her so that others might see the nature of our connection. Because when you've had a husband for 60 years and a best friend for 70, you know, a really committed, loyal person, in a way, it has been healing to see all those aspects of my life and how they have impacted me. However, like the song, it has increased my appreciation for everyone and my life. In a way, that's the theme, and that's it. It's as though, without you, I wouldn't be here. Uncle Bill and I are conversing. I'm conversing with my folks. I'm speaking with my relatives. I'm speaking with Sandy Gallen. First of all, you know, I'm speaking to God. And it seems like I'm simply saying that without Judy and Carl, none of the folks in there would be here, and without you, I wouldn't be. And the fans, which are, in my opinion, one of the reasons it was such an amazing song, that, in my opinion, encapsulated my entire existence. However, I've had to leave my heart open, which may be really uncomfortable. I have a really deep and sensitive personality. You know, I've had to wear my heart on my sleeve for a very long time. I also weep more easily now than I did in the past. I kind of get struck by stuff, you know. I am aware that many of those things come with becoming older. However, I believe it's a combination of both in this instance. However, I believe that the most important thing is to just leave your life open so that everyone may look directly at you, through you, and into you. And I hope my heart is visible to them. I hope they can realize how much I value it. That's what I want people to take away from it. You can succeed if you put in a lot of effort, have a positive mindset, treat people well, and stand your ground. Everyone's reactions to Carl have been incredibly endearing. Our relationship is similar to an old-fashioned love tale. You know, most individuals don't stay that close for very long. But I guess I'm happy when he says, "Hello, I'm Carl Dean," and gets applause throughout the presentation. The whole thing about him was that, despite his lack of fame, he was well known. He was well known for being unknown. However, I believe that the way I expressed our love would be appreciated by him. And as I mentioned before, no one can truly understand that kind of loss until they have personally experienced it. In any case, I'm simply glad he can be here indefinitely and that he will always hold a special place in my heart and memories. As I prepared to write my most recent book, or the final book in a trilogy, Songteller, the first book was about my songwriting. Then, there was my life behind the scenes, in rhinestones. You know, my life on the road is the focus of this one. Thus, I considered Star of the Show to be one of my best compositions. It's brilliant, in my opinion. I don't play second fiddle in anyone's band. It's truly about a romantic relationship. I won't be like someone's female singer, you know, and I won't participate. You understand that if you love me, you will love me, and I will be the only one. However, as we began writing the most recent book, I realized that it would be about my life on the road, on stage, and behind the scenes. That song just seemed like the ideal choice for Star of the Show. When you reach my age, you begin to consider what needs to be done to finish it, to ensure that you leave behind what you want others to know from your own words, from your own heart, from your own self. That's why I thought, well, this is a good one. Let's just finish this one and move on. When I was putting this book together, I became aware of how much I had given up in my life and how many people I had sacrificed in the process. At least I didn't have to feel guilty because I never had kids. My spouse was also rather self-sufficient. He enjoyed his solitude. Being with anyone but me didn't really matter to him. He enjoyed being on the farm and doing his thing, even if he had a few buddies. Additionally, he tends to be a recluse, which was ideal for us. However, I continue to stare at it and wonder, well, how do I even get it done? I believe my father instilled in me a strong work ethic. It was more than show business. In everything you do, you must have a strong work ethic. And I think I got that from my dad. And thus, my daddy worked hard his whole life. He had to. However, I've talked a lot about how intelligent he was despite not being able to read and write. And he was such a hard worker. And my mother's people were all highly musical and really artistic and imaginative. When it comes to anything other than their skill or art, people typically don't enjoy putting in a lot of effort. However, I believe that my mother and her people gave me a very strong spiritual and creative foundation, and my father instilled in me a strong sense of duty and willingness. I believe my parents are a fantastic match. However, you must put in a lot of effort in all you do. And I wasn't considering whether or not I would become famous. In my mind, I was going to succeed. That's what I was planning to do. It was similar to the lyric, I was going to be rich, no matter how much it cost, from the Sacrifice song. And regardless of how much I lost, I was going to prevail. Those lines work well. It also contains a great deal of truth. It wasn't about just being rich. That was just about being successful at what I love to do. So I just think you have to work hard at anything you're going to ever be successful at. A want and a dream are two separate things. Therefore, you can't just wish for it. Without a lot of effort, neither wishes nor dreams come true. And because I'm willing to do it, that has been one of the things that has helped me succeed. I'm ready to rise early. I'm open to staying up late. I'm prepared to put in a lot of effort. I simply believe it is my obligation. I'm just an ordinary person, you know. I'm not a party doll, even if I don't appear like one. Therefore, when I'm not working, I prefer to relax and spend time with friends or family, or do nothing at all. I adore reading. I don't watch much TV, and it's terrible these days. In the morning, I check the news to see if the world is still standing or if I should be doing something else. I enjoy reading, but I don't get sucked into the madness of it. I thus enjoy doing that a lot. When I have a day off, I usually just cook, eat, flop, and read. I also don't always wear the wigs, because I never know when a sister or someone else may drop by or if someone needs to come fix my refrigerator or anything else. I prefer to pull my hair up a little bit and scrunch it up. However, I prefer to feel at ease. As I mentioned before, I may be floppy and slouchy, but I normally wear high heels, not always this high, because I'm short. I manage to go to my cabinets. I have to have a variety of shoe sizes for my home because I have to get to that food while I'm off. However, I believe it was a combination of both being at ease and maintaining a small amount of the same as when I was with my spouse. I mean, it's as if I wouldn't show up at home looking like a slouch for him after dressing up for everyone else. As a result, I always like tidying up and being cute for him. I strive to be who I am and don't try to be anything else. And I've always maintained that I'm a very professional Dolly Parton. That's all you can say about me. I don't try to dictate to others how they should behave. However, I am rather self-contained in terms of who I am, my religion, my values, my personality, and what I believe I am capable of. And I've benefited greatly from that throughout the years. I never strive to be someone I'm not, and when I think about my work, I'm grateful that I was able to realize my dreams. However, I was an artist. I consider myself to be an artist. I compose the songs, you know. I'd want to sing them, I'd want to do them, and it's all sort of combined into one. However, it never detracts from my identity as a person, my talents from God, or how appreciative I am that God has given me both skill and opportunities. Therefore, if I just kind of stay rooted inside myself and do what I do best, I never go too far from that. All I want is for all I've done to endure, and for us to be able to help someone else. We recently added a line to the show a few days ago. It's more about what my life can accomplish than it is about me, or what my life can be. At this stage in my life, all I want is to be able to accomplish positive things that I can build upon and continue. And I'm pleased with my legacy thus far. Thus, my goal is to just keep doing things that might help others. Please share your thoughts in the comments area. Thank you for watching. Let us know about it in the comments. Thank you for watching. Don't miss out on upcoming thrilling videos by subscribing.